Welcome to those of you who are here with us live today within the Mindful Journey community for this guest interview, and for the many of you who will be joining on demand. I thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to improve, to help you live a healthier and happier life. I'm so grateful to have someone here that I've certainly learned so much from over the years. Our guest today, Pat Croce. Pat is an incredible soul, just a genuine, authentic, and humble individual. We first connected in 2015, and what was so impressive to me was not so much his resume and the accolades and the fame, if you will, that he's received and has been noted for, but just his desire to serve. And when we spoke most recently, he talked with me that he's deeply desiring, not desiring, I shouldn't say, because he's very intentional in his words, but deeply intentional about helping people alleviate their pain. And though he doesn't like going into his past too much, I will share just a little bit about his resume. He's graced the cover of Success Magazine, has been deemed the Entrepreneur of the Year. He's built a sports medicine empire that spanned 11 states, and upon its sale, it ultimately purchased the Philadelphia 76ers in '96. For those of you who may not be basketball fans, that's okay. But what he had done with the team was something I think we can all find value in from a business standpoint, in that he was able to take them from the last place to first place, ultimately growing their revenue, but most importantly, getting the city of Philadelphia excited about their team and building camaraderie around it. So in 2001, led them to the NBA Finals, and again, has been an entrepreneur since, until about 2014. He began a spiritual journey wherein he traveled the world and has been learning what it means to be introspective and mindful, and how it is that we cannot focus so much on what's next, but be intentional on focusing to what's now. So I probably didn't do that to service its due, but I'm so humbled, Pat, to have you here today, and thank you for your time spent being here.
Adam, it's my pleasure. It's my honor. One qualification. As the owner of the 76ers, I was only a minority owner. I helped put the deal together, but Comcast was the majority owner, just so you know that.
Yeah,
and then I left the ownership and everything after that NBA battle in the finals. It was time for me to go and next, but I just want to make sure your community knows that I am still not the owner right now, and that I was not the sole owner, that I needed a lot more money than I had at the time.
Understood. Well, thank you for that clarification. And yes, it's magnificent though, Pat. And I know we're not going to look too much in the past, but I'm fascinated with the idea that a NBA president owner would do something like climb the Walt Whitman Bridge. So what it is that you had done for the Sixers, in spite of not being the sole majority owner, I think the city of Philadelphia, I'm sure, credits you with much of the enthusiasm that was felt in that city.
Well, thank you, Adam. And one thing that most of your community knows, that if you want to be a success, you have to follow your passion, right? You truly have to follow your passion. And the me has to become a we. It can't be done by yourself. So it's that passion, that participation by you with everyone else, with a positive attitude and believing in your intention, not believing it in a Pollyannish way, but in a way that that if it's to be, it's up to me, but I'm going to need the we. Yeah. So it's a lot of us doing this together. And that everyone in Philadelphia knew that I was a homie. I was born and bred in Philadelphia. And so unlike people who transition through the NBA, whether coaches, GMs, players, they're normally not from the city of where they're playing or where they're employed. I was, and so I took it personally.
Yeah, I love that approach. Well, Pat, let's start, if you don't mind, with mindfulness, because a lot of our community folks are, on varying spectrums. They're immersed in different worlds of business, and some may be college students. So we've got a wide range of folks immersed in different specialties and maybe in different phases of life, but mindfulness is something that we can all benefit from. And you helped me in 2015 understand an element of, what it means to be mindful. And I think so many people hear the word mindful now and have this misconception into what it means. In other words, they feel and perhaps believe that, mindfulness requires you being in a yoga pose with the lights dimmed and with a candle lit to really be in tune with self. Can you just walk us through what it truly means to be mindful? What is mindfulness?
Adam, right there. You and the entire community viewing my index finger, that's an old Zen technique. We're mindful. All of you were mindful. Mindfulness is just placing your attention on purpose, on the now, whatever is in the present moment, without judgment, without interference, without resistance. Just allowing your awareness to stretch out toward some object of experience, whether it's a thought, a bodily feeling, a sensation, a worldly perception, whatever activity you're doing or whomever you're doing it with. Example, listening, right there, with a very attentive ear, without any judgment and without the interest of interrupting, just allowing the speaker to speak. That's mindful listening. That's called right action. And then you can process that. But if your mind, conditioned mind, kicks in before you even allow the speaker to speak, and you really want to interrupt or you want to place judgment on, you're really not being mindful because you're not present. You're already comparing to the past or expecting something in the future, and you're bringing it into your thoughts of the now. And that really dilutes and disrupts a really good way of understanding.
I love that. Is there anything, Pat, that you've done in your life to help you be more intentional on being in the now?
Yes, yes. And this is where meditation is a very important practice, or what's called a sadhana. It's a practice, a meditation, and it's not sitting in lotus position with smelling a patchouli and having incense burning, and you don't have to ring a bell. Nothing. Just sit someplace that's comfortable, someplace ideally that's quiet. And ideally, to start, you may want to use a guided meditation like Calm or Headspace or John Kabat-Zinn's or Sharon Salzberg. A lot of these teachers have guided meditations, but the idea of meditation is just to allow whatever thought arises to come and let it go. Whatever feeling or sensation in the body arises, let it come and let it go. And what this does in the moment of no stress is allow you to build the let it go muscle, so that when you are in times of stress, someone cuts you off or you're behind someone slow in the passing lane, and you start getting the voice in the head starts chattering away, you can let it go. Yeah. So it's best to practice in a non-stressful situation. And that's what meditation is. The goal of meditation, Adam, is there is no goal. No, there's no goal. The goal is just to be present and to witness what arises and be comfortable with it. Don't resist it. Don't interfere it. Let it come, let it go. Like the noisy neighbor who knocks on your door and wants to badger you about something. Thank you and let it go. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, I love that, Pat. As I shared with you when we spoke last week, when you first told me about mindfulness and the work became a little more meaningful to me, I started reading different books, and one of them was by John Kabat-Zinn, Wherever You Go, There You Are.
How good's that?
Oh, it's so good. And what I love is he helped me recognize that, like you're saying, there is no goal, right? Mindfulness, as he described it, he said, people so oftentimes will meditate or try to be mindful thinking they're going to feel this superior type feeling and they're going to all of a sudden just be a better businessman, a better businesswoman, or better person, a husband, wife. And he said, it's really just about feeling what you're feeling. It's not about, you're not looking for a feeling. You're just looking to, it really mindful.
No, stop. You're just looking.
Yeah.
Don't put an object to it. You're just looking. You're not attaching to the object of experience. You're not attaching to the thought, to the bodily sensation, to the bodily feeling, to the worldly perception. You're just looking, perceiving, observing, witnessing. You are the mirror, and you're seeing exactly what comes in front of the mirror as it is, without affecting you and without you attaching to it or identifying with it. Once you start identifying with the thoughts in your head, that voice in your head, and for your community that is asking right now, what voice? That one. That voice in your head that's saying, what voice is he talking about?
Yeah.
That one that's talking right now that never stops talking. And you can't control that voice. And if you say, I got to stop thinking, that won't work, because that just pervades and perpetuates thinking, because that's a thought unto itself. No, the best way to stop thinking is to be still and put your awareness on that thought and watch it go away. Just watch it. I have a great technique I learned from Pema Chodron, who's a Buddhist teacher. She's a Buddhist nun, American, mother of two, divorced. She's fabulous, like fabulous. Her books are wonderful. Start Where You Are, and just wonderful. I remember using this technique about 6-7 years ago. I adapted it to my own. So what I call it is the red balloon. And so when you get lost in your thoughts, whether you're meditating or just driving in the car or in a meeting and you're just all over the place, or in bed and you can't go back to sleep and your mind is just running on a treadmill, do this. I want you to take the word thinking in capital letters, bold capital letters, and put it in a red balloon. So there's a red balloon and you see thinking in bold letters. Take a deep breath in through your nose. And as you exhale through your mouth, let that breath come down underneath the balloon, the red balloon, and let it blow up, all the way up. Lift it up into the blue sky, up, and you're blowing it out and watching this red balloon in your mind with the word thinking go and go and go, and get smaller and smaller and smaller until all is left is the blue sky. Your mind is still.
Yes.
So anyone says they can't still their mind, it's bullshit.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, it's so much easier to say that we can't, or assume, like you're saying, that we need to attach to some feeling, and therein when it doesn't come, we just give up and we revert back to, autopilot and going on our devices now. And that's why I think this conversation around mindfulness is so important now, maybe even more than ever before, because as folks have been going through COVID and been in their homes, our devices have become a mechanism for us to avoid our thoughts and feelings. And so it's hard to be mindful when we're mindlessly scrolling. And, so I think I love that visual. So the red balloon. So what was the name again of the teacher you learned that from?
Pema, P-E-M-A, Chodron, C-H-O-D-R-O-N. What a wonderful teacher. Your community will love her. I'm not a Buddhist practitioner, but I study Buddhism because I just love what it does for the mind. I study them all. So I don't attach to any one anymore. But I love all the disciplines. I love all the traditions. And all the traditions all have one common theme: the unity, the oneness that we all are, whether you call it Brahman, consciousness, awareness, God's infinite being, the Tao, it doesn't really matter, but there's one essential being which emanates into all these beautiful expressions we call people and animals and objects.
Yeah, love that. I love that. Well, Pat, that's already so helpful. As I think I shared with you on the front end, I have, two intentions as you and I had spoken. I think I'd said it's my hope to give the community members X and Y. And we talked about the intention of, and one of them was to give something tangible wherein they could take back from a mindfulness practice and implement in their life. But the second thing I'm particularly interested about our viewers and listeners here today, and then those on demand getting, or something that is something that they can leverage maybe beyond what we already talked about when they're facing a life crisis, so to speak. So I pose that to ask you, would you mind sharing about a time in your life that has been or was incredibly difficult and what you maybe did from a mindset perspective or a ritual perspective to help you get through that adversity.
And this was before I was on the spiritual path. This happened in 1999. It was, I was standing on top of the world because the Sixers, we had just made it to the second round of the playoffs, the NBA playoffs, and we lost to the Indiana Pacers. But it was the first time the team was in the playoffs at all. We made it to the second round in 8 years, and it was my third year as president. So there I am standing on top of the world in Philadelphia, and a week later, I'm in a motorcycle accident. And 6 of us crossing the country, and one rookie came off in a wet weather, and I was dismounting to put on rain gear under an overpass, and he cut my leg off with his highway peg, and my boot was off in the rain. And I mean, I pick it up, and it's only attached to my leg by my Achilles tendon and some strands of denim. So I had surgeries, and I'm in the hospital, and they transplanted some of my shoulder muscle, the serratus anterior to be specific, down on my leg, because it was like someone had a hanger knee down there. They couldn't close it with my own skin. They had to patch it up with spackling using muscle. And it had its own artery and veins. And luckily, through conditioning and physical fitness, it was in good shape. And all it is, it looks like a hamburger on my leg. But nevertheless, I was no beauty contest anyway. And so it's, I'm in the hospital now. My right arm is tied up to the ceiling because they have tubes coming out where they took the muscle beneath my shoulder blade, attaches to your ribs. They put that down there. My left hip, they took skin and put it over, and they did a skin transplant. My right arm, I can't use it because there's 3 IVs in it. So I have only, now here's a guy who's a physical therapist, an athletic trainer, a conditioning coach for the Stars prior to, in the past life. And here I am, I have one leg functioning. And I got to tell you, there was a moment of despair, Adam. I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, I only had one leg to work, nothing else. And my mind was, the voice in the head was on autopilot and saying how awful it was, and how, look at your body's just decaying. And fitness was always part of my daily regime. And then the plastic surgeon came in, a Dr. David Lowe. The orthopedic surgeon did all the orthopedic work, put the rod in, put the bones back together, aligned the foot with a plumb line, and so it looks straight. But the plastic surgeon is the one who transplanted the muscle. And he came in just at this time, probably my lowest point, and he puts the headset on, and he has a Doppler to listen to the sound if the blood flow is going through the muscle. That's this medical spackling to see if it's taking. If it's not taking, okay, they're going to take the bandsaw out, and there's going to be an amputation next. And he goes like this, Adam. He listens, he goes, it sounds great. Right there, it was like, ta-da! That's all we need, was someone believing either in you or in what they did mindfully, that, whoa, it was like I just kickstarted 100 motorcycles at once, and the horns were blasting and the fireworks were flaring, and it was just like a championship shot. It was like, yes. And then it knocked me back out, and I thought, I'm never going to that dark spot again.
Yes. Wow. It's a powerful and impactful story, Pat. And you and I have not spoken about that before. And I didn't know
I can't even remember the last time I brought it up. Might have been in a book that I wrote 20 years ago, but other than that.
Well, I feel so privileged that you shared with that today. With that experience, I know you recently, and I'd love for you to talk a little more about your collaboration with the American Cancer Society, of course, but I know you had recently, defeated cancer. And of course, anytime you hear the words, you have cancer, I can't fathom to understand what it would feel like. But you said something that was so telling to me when we spoke last week, in that your body didn't have cancer. It wasn't a part of your being.
No. My body had cancer.
Oh yeah, your body had cancer,
but I didn't have cancer.
Yes. Sorry,
it's funny or ironic or synchronistic that we're talking about this right now, because I just came back. We scheduled this at 11 o'clock because my appointment today at 9 o'clock was to get my blood work for the oncologist that I have my meeting with him next week, and you do the blood work, because I have one rogue protein that's still off the charts high. And so we're just keeping an eye on it. The point that you're making is that it was around my birthday, November 2nd. Just before that, I thought I had poison ivy. I had no idea what was going on, but I had this burning in my chest. And I work out in the woods. I have this Zen path, and I got built 3 miles of paths that I love on my property. And I couldn't figure it out. I put steroidal cream on it. I put poison ivy lotion, prescription lotion I had, nothing worked. So I called the dermatologist, sent a picture. She prescribed some 2.5% steroidal cream. I did it twice a day for 2.5 weeks. 2 weeks it wasn't working, and I was embarrassed to tell her it wasn't working. I called her up and I said, Doc, I still got this itchiness, and it looks like $2 in size. Mm-hmm. And she said, why don't you come in and we'll do a biopsy? I'm thinking, a biopsy? Now, I'm about an hour away from where my doctor is. So I go in, I do the biopsy. And normally, you have these basal cell carcinomas or squamous cell carcinomas. They do a biopsy a week later, say, come on in, we got to cut it off. And no big deal, because they're not metastasis. They're not going to metastasize. They just grow, and you got to get them cut off. Mm-hmm. Many of your communities, us light people, half of me is Irish, the other half of me is Italian. It's the Irish part that's getting these, I could be drinking more or something. But nevertheless, it's 1 week, I don't hear from her. 2 weeks, I don't hear from her. 3 weeks later, a Friday morning, 7:30, she calls me. And I think, wow, I see it. And I thought, wow, why is she like, I just finished working out. She goes, Pat, I got your biopsy back. I said, wow, it took long enough. She said, well, there's a diagnosis to a cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. I said, are you telling me that I have cancer? She said, yes. I said, okay, what do we do about it? Mm. And in that sacred pause is where I immediately went from the conditioned mind of me attached to the body to the I that I am. The I that I am. The I am that I am is the same I am that you are, Adam. It's the same I am that every one of your community is. When we qualify it with I am Pat Croce, or I am Adam, or I am white, or I am black, then all feces hits the fan. Forget about it then. Because then you are just a separate self. You are not the true capital S self. And that's what I know. And so people ask, so how you doing? Nothing. On a scale from 0 to 10, 10 meaning shoot me, I never went off the 0 mark. Never. It doesn't bother me at all. If anything, I took it as an adventure. An adventure. I met all these great radiation therapists, radiation oncologists, my oncologist, all kinds of different people along the way that I would not have normally met. People with cancer, whose bodies have all kinds of cancer. When I would sit in that waiting room for the month of radiation, the month of December, I would talk to whomever was sitting across from me, and everyone was worse than me. I mean, I just had some, lymphoma, skin cancer. These people had prostate cancer, throat cancer, colon cancer. But the whole idea was for me just to share some positive, peaceful presence that felt comfortable for them, because it is them. And so, but the mind is like a dark cloud on a blue sky where that red balloon's going. The mind acts like these black clouds, and you don't get to see the blue, clear sky of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like that visual, Pat. Now, do you think that your journey over these past 6-7 years of being more introspective and mindful allowed you to meet that diagnosis with the courage and the strength that you did? Whereas if you were in 1999, when you had gone through the motorcycle accident and you hadn't known this part of self yet, do you think that you would have still met it with the same courage?
I can't answer that question, Adam, because it's pure conjecture. The only truth always comes in the present moment. So anything I answer comes from the same space of presence where your question's coming. Although there's no way that I would have looked at a diagnosis of cancer on my body as not me having it back 7 years ago. I didn't know the I that I am is not a limited body mind. That's the big fallacy. Most people think that we are this body and mind. No, we are so much greater than. That's why mindfulness, placing your mind, is just placing the awareness in the I am. So just briefly, the I, that I am, that you are, the I is aware. Anyone who knows themselves calls themselves I. When you say, I am aware of Pat, I am aware that the Zoom's going to start, you go, it's always I.
Sure.
That's being aware. You have to be aware. The am is the being, the existence, the I am, the aware being, the aware presence, being aware. So being aware is the essence of all of us. And my being aware doesn't end and yours starts. No, there's not. Being aware is limitless. Therefore, it needs nothing. It lacks nothing. It's happiness. It can't be disrupted or disturbed. Therefore, it's peace. So the peace and happiness that we are inherently, essentially, is who we are. It just gets clouded over and veiled with thoughts and beliefs, feelings, ideas, comparisons, expectations, anticipations, resistance. And that just is how the conditioned mind works, unless you go and investigate the nature of your mind. And that's what I did, started 7 years ago. Once you realize that the mind really doesn't exist, there is no such thing as mind. The mind is just a vibration or modulation of pure being aware, awareness. And when the mind kicks in with a thought, it needs time because it's movement. And then it creates time. There's no time. There's only now. There's only now. And when you're in the now, and that's what mindfulness does, mindfulness helps you take looking forward or looking back. And that's okay to look back to learn and evolve, and to look forward to plan, but then step into the now to execute every action item on your plan. Don't keep your eyes on the prize. That's baloney. No, keep your eyes on exactly what you're doing. And that's my definition of success. How you do whatever you do, how you do what you do in the now creates the wow. Right now. And that's success. Those of you who can really place your attention on exactly what you're doing, whether it's listening, drawing, writing an email, eating, whatever it is, hugging, loving, crying, whatever it is, placing your full, that's success. So that little wow you feel, just imagine how many nows you have. Well, there's only one now, but you can create many, many wows in that now, because life moves through the now. We think the now is a point in time that moves. No, there's always only now, and life moves through it. You are the now. You are the life.
Ooh, this is good. This is great stuff, Pat. I hope that we'll have a few minutes at the end for questions, but I hope that the community members are getting this, because again, it's just so important to hear, even if it's something that they have heard before, just, from your perspective and the passion you place behind it. I just love hearing it. It's like you've shared some of this with me in the past, but it's like I'm learning it all over again. So just thank you for this passion that you're bringing to this conversation in the now. What would you say to someone, though, who is kind of hearing this and they feel that energy of this moment, but they're in the back of their mind, their little voice is still going and saying, yeah, but Pat, you don't know what it's like. I work in a job that's a toxic culture. My husband or wife just cheated on me. I'm facing financial difficulty, and I've tried to be more intentional on being in the now, but it's just not working. What would you say to that person who feels like they're at their wit's end and just is maybe hearing what you're saying, but not absorbing it?
Take all of those problems, so-called problems, and narrow it down to the most important problem. And then redefine that problem as a challenge. So let's elevate your vibrational frequency from a low problem-based, fear-based, to a higher vibrational frequency of take on as a challenge. And that higher vibrational frequency not only will emit out to everyone around you and into the situation, but it also pulls the law of attraction. It attracts like frequencies so that you can have more support, and you don't know what opportunities or what people are going to come to your service. But if you stay low and keep saying, but that won't happen, but big, ugly trouble, but big, ugly trouble, but it just keeps changing what is now into something you anticipate will be, when it, in fact, it may not be that at all. And that low vibrational frequency will attract anger and frustration and shame and regret and loneliness and all the other low vibrational frequencies. So why hang out there?
Mm-hmm.
First thing you can do is transform the problem into a challenge. There are no problems in the present moment. There's a challenge we have to handle right now.
Yes.
If it's financial, okay, what is it? Look at your bank account. What must I do to meet today's demands, this month's demands? Break it all the way down. Okay, if I have to work 2 jobs, or if I have to leave this job and do something else, or I have to work from home, look at that first.
Yeah.
Bring the most intense problem and make it the most important challenge in your life right now, whether it's a relationship with your spouse or best friend or whatever it might be. Everything can have a solution if you 50% of the solution is defining the problem, right?
Yeah.
So take that problem, make it a challenge. Now you got 60% of the solution.
I love that. No, I think that's quite valuable, actually. And you know, when I face my own problem in the future, I'll try that tactic myself. I've not really thought of it in that way. As I've shared with you, journaling has become very important to me to help me become more aware of, you know, what I'm feeling and how it is that I'm showing up and how I'm performing, etc. So that taking
what you're doing, Adam, if I might interrupt, what you're doing to that so-called problem is just reframing your perspective. And in this reframing, this reversal perspective from a problem to a challenge, you are immediately elevating your vibrational energy, the force that you emit. And it's going to help instantly. Ideas will come through because the problem tends to be projected into the future, and there's worry. And the lid to the now is closed, and you're out here. All universal intelligence and truth, all great remedies come in the now between thoughts. A thought doesn't think. A thought is thought. All great action steps, all strategies, all creations, all artistry, all music is there in the space between thoughts. And so when you're in the now, you open up that divine universe chute, and the divine universe brings this intelligence that mixes, marinates with your conceptual intelligence, and some new concept, new idea, some new way will help alleviate the challenge.
Yes, yes.
If you keep worrying, you're just going to keep worrying, and you can't worry in the now, Adam. It's that simple. You cannot be upset, anxious in work. You can't. It's impossible. Because you must think about. But in the now, you can only be. You can't think about in the now. You can only be in the now. That aware being that you are. That's where the happiness, the peace, the love, the intelligence, the beauty all arise in the now.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Good, Pat. I mean, I'm going to go back and rewatch this a few times myself to make sure I'm not missing these golden nuggets, but this has been wonderful. Just shifting gears a little bit, because I trust there are some folks who are basketball fans within the community, either on now or who will watch later. And, you know, of course, the Philadelphia 76ers in 2001 did something that, you know, not many franchises were able to do in a short time of going from last to first. But with that came some challenges, at least from the public perspective. You know, I was a fan of Allen Iverson myself. And, you know, he had a big personality, was a wonderful basketball player, you know, arguably one of the best ever, perhaps.
Well, pound for pound he was.
Yeah, yeah.
Definitely pound for pound. I mean, I wouldn't put him Michael Jordan and LeBron James and Wilt Chamberlain. I mean, Dr. J, there's some great NBA players, but pound for pound, 160 pounds, he was by far the best.
Yeah, wow, that's neat coming from you, having been able to watch it, front row, front and center for 5 years. With Iverson and Larry Brown, though, part of the reason I want to ask this question is because some of the folks in our community not only may have an interest in basketball, but many of them are lead teams or own businesses, et cetera. And I'm a big believer of culture within organizations, of having a culture that's not, driven through toxicity, but one where people feel courageous enough to be vulnerable, to share their thoughts, et cetera. Iverson and Brown in the public eye seemingly butt heads. Is that fair to say? I mean, was there like the tension that ESPN would speak of? Was there some of that actually happening? And if so, how did you navigate that as a leader to ensure the coach and player were on the same page, even if they did butt heads?
To answer your first question, yes, there was some tension. Larry Brown is a brilliant coach, but he expects pro players to be professional and not need anything but his coaching. Allen Iverson was one's from the world of bebop, the other one's from hip hop, and they were just two different cultures. Here's Allen Iverson, who created a lot of the culture that we see today. And I was a big fan of his, to be who he thought he was and just to be genuine. And when he would miss a practice or be late or something, and Larry Brown would say, was just fed up with him, I would take care of it. I would call him over. I was the one that didn't let him dress in Boston or in Miami when he was missed a shoot around, because Larry Brown didn't want to discipline them in a sense where he felt that he was past that. If they shouldn't be there if they're going to miss a practice. So it was my responsibility. But there was one time when Larry Brown wanted to trade him. The next day, I got a call that night after, I think a game was in Detroit, and Allen Iverson called me. He wanted Larry Brown fired. So we'll meet the next morning, and it was a really ugly situation where I sat them both down and said, "You aren't being traded, and you aren't being fired. You two are more alike than you think, and you both have a common goal to win. And so let's make it work." And then I had to say some things that were a little personal so that the felt understanding. It's one thing just to hear words, but when you put the experiential understanding in, just like in mindfulness and meditation and spirituality, it's got to be experienced. Anything I say is not true. You have to take what I say, the words, and use them provisionally for yourself to make sure the experience is true. Then you understand, I can do this. So everything. This meeting was one where I told Allen Iverson, I said, "What do you think the coach thinks of when you MF him coming off the bench, when he wants you to sit and he wants someone else? He just wants to win. He wants the best player. What do you think he's thinking? How would you feel?" And then I said to Larry Brown, I said, "Larry, how do you think Allen Iverson's feeling when you're saying, 'Sit down there'?"
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what he thought. And he told me in the past. It was like the jailer when he was in prison saying, "Sit over there, you little N-word."
Yeah.
And I said it, and both of, like, Larry Brown all of a sudden was looking like he understood. He put himself in Allen's shoes. Allen put himself in the coach's shoes. And before long, where Allen was sitting like this, he was like this. And he got up and walked around the other side of the table and hugged Larry Brown. They hugged. And they really, and that was the beginning. I think that was in year 4. That was really the turning point. We were start winning in the 3rd year, but the 4th year start really. And then that really just propelled us into the 5th year when on Allen's back and Larry's coaching took us to the finals against the Lakers. And Shaq and Kobe, I mean, that was quite a force.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, sure. Well, that's neat, Pat. That's I've always been a big believer of posing a question to kind of what you're describing, as I'm hearing it, is challenging people to be empathetic in some capacity, of making them shift outside of self to think how others may receive or perceive what it is that's being said or done. And it sounds like that was quite effective in that regard. Were there other things as a leader of the Sixers, or serving as president, were from an internal culture perspective, did you use similar tactics if there were things in the front office, or what were your thoughts and feelings around driving culture to, make it an inclusive work environment?
Well, I never thought of driving culture. I just did it. It's
Mm,
not something I would think of because my success in business as an entrepreneur was always because people would follow me because I would treat them with respect and I would appreciate them. R&R, recognition and remuneration. That's really important. And I'm all about compliments when compliments are due, but I'm also about, still to this day, you teach people how to treat you. I don't screw around. If you're going to treat someone nasty, wrong, foul, I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to talk to you. And if you do it again, you're gone. That's it. It's that simple. There's no gray. There was never any gray, Adam, in my world, in my business world, ever. It was black and white. You could help me define what was black and white, but then I would hold your feet to the fire. It wasn't my way. It was our way or the highway.
yeah. Yeah.
But don't help me create a way and then you think you can take a detour. No, that's not working. Nope. We have to all buy in. And once we bought in, that's it.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that, Pat. Well, I want to be cognizant of our time. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about what you're doing with the American Cancer Society for you to share with the community members, for them to maybe visit, because I'm truly inspired by I know you felt that you were graced with cancer, and that as a result of having your diagnosis, you have shifted it into something more meaningful. So would you mind just spending a minute or two or three, however long you'd like, sharing what this HEALED project is and how people could get involved if they're interested?
Adam, thank you for that preview. You said the word grace, and that's really with a capital G. So I had thrown out there to the divine universe that I write a tweet every day, inspirational, spiritual. You can define it any way you want. It's just a tweet to make you consider everything we're talking about, the oneness of the universe, the peacefulness that we are. And I do this sangha, a spiritual sangha, every Sunday at 11 for several hundred people, and it just keeps spreading. I was doing Zoom before Zoom was Zoom. I should have bought the stock back then, 2 years ago. As a matter of fact, this Sunday we start season 3, year 3. And I just threw it out. I said to my wife, Diana, I would like to do more to help people stop suffering, because it's suffering. I think it was the Buddha said, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Suffering is a choice, not the suffering that comes with sorrow and grief with the death of a loved one, because that's a manifestation of love. But the suffering that comes from the manifestation of fear and anger and frustration and upsetness and dis-ease, and, non-forgiveness and dissatisfaction, boredom, all the just little subtle ones are suffering. And you don't have to suffer. You do not have to suffer. I'll say that again. And so I thought there's got to be a bigger way. She said, Pat, you're doing all you can. And then my body was graced with this diagnosis of cancer. And as I'm going through, getting my 60 stitches, 58 stitches across my chest, I went, you're good. You're good. I was like Billy Crystal in that movie talking to, De Niro talking to Billy Crystal in that psychiatrist movie. You're good. And I thought, what better way than to use cancer as a channel? Look at everyone who's touched by cancer. Everyone.
Yes.
What, is there 1 degree of separation, whether you've been diagnosed or your loved one has been, or a friend? Everyone. And so I thought, wow. So I contacted the American Cancer Society in the Philadelphia area. I've never worked with them before. I used to work with multiple sclerosis and Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, but I didn't know anyone. And I talked to this lady, Paula Green, and I said what I was interested in doing. And she goes, that would be wonderful. I don't know. Let me get back to you. And so a little while later, she got back and she said, Pat, we have this HEALED program, HEALED, health and energy through active living every day. The research was done in 2019 with 85 participants in involving nutrition and fitness as a survivor, because 75% of those who've had cancer don't do anything after they've had it. They just rest on the couch. That's scary. So she said, I mean, we talked to headquarters in Atlanta. We'd love to revitalize this and get the money. I said, what do you need? She said, about 2.5 million. I said, okay, I'll put up 10%. I'll raise the rest. And to this day, now we have almost 2 million. And everyone, you can see this bracelet here. Let me see that green bead right there. If you go to acshealed.com, ACS, American Cancer Society, and make a little donation, and if you don't have money, that's okay, send an email, we'll get you one anyway, and get this bracelet. And this was what I created. It was a knockoff of Lance Armstrong's yellow Livestrong bracelet, but I wanted something with mala beads because, you know, these are good just to hold, and you can take your voice in the head and move it to the feeling between your thumb and the bead, and you can use them as a rosary bead, or in Buddhist, they call them prayer beads, or, you know, and this is called the mother bead, this green one. I wanted green for harmony, healing, nature. And so everyone, there's like 700 people who've registered so far and are wearing these bracelets. And it's a movement that can ripple across the country, around the world like a tsunami, and just everyone awash in this green bead. We're all in this together. Yeah. And between you and I and your community, beingness, the oneness that we all are. And then every Wednesday I do at 11 o'clock tomorrow, I do a gathering, a ACS Healed community gathering for an hour at 11 o'clock via Zoom. And I bring on 2 guests. I mean, I've had Stephen A. Smith from his mother died of cancer, to Michael Smerconish on CNN, and to there's always a warrior, a survivor, the Alicia Jenkins from the Detroit Pistons, VP of marketing, who've gone through so much surgery for her back that had cancer. I mean, these people were all the way up to, like, I think week 17. And so these gatherings are just a way to get information out so that you're not in this alone. Mm-hmm. Tomorrow I have Dr. Jeannie Subak on from Westchester University, who's a nutritionist, and she used to work with me with the Flyers and with the Sixers. She's wonderful. She'll be the first half. And I got this guy, Danny Hill, a 21-year-old with osteosarcoma that's metastasized, who will share his tools and points on how he has his mindset on his healing it. And it's just acshealed.com for all of your community. If you're interested, it's just a wonderful place.
Yeah, well, thank you, Pat, for sharing that. And I'll put a note out on social media and put it inside the community too, because I think it's such meaningful work, you know, what you were describing it. And of course, I perused the site myself, but having a community of people come together and feel support, I think community now more than ever before is so needed, especially when you're experiencing something wherein you feel perhaps hopeless. If you're not taking care of self in the mind, and you're not maybe implementing those mindfulness strategies, not everyone is going to have the same courage that, again, maybe you had. So that community is really a tangible way to get people feeling okay about not being okay, and having.
And Adam, it's really important too, when we talk about mindfulness, to the screenings, whether it's prostate screening, breast screening, PSA, or blood work. Go to your physician on a yearly basis. Go. If I didn't go and get this thing checked, who would have got? I mean, there's so much, and people are afraid to get screened. No, please. And that's what the community is about, is when you see people who have lessened their chance for death and severe illness because they were screened and caught in time, where treatment can have a better, more effective place if it's caught earlier. And that's what this is all about, is please have your annual physical, get screened, get your blood checked. If something's not right, if you feel something's not right, you are intuitive enough to listen to your body, get it checked out.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I agree with you for sure. Hey, we have just one question that came in. Do you have just another few minutes, Pat?
Sure.
Okay. We have one question that came in, and for anyone who's still listening with us, feel free to put your question in the chat box. We'll try to answer a few. It can be around business, life, mindfulness, whatever you may want. So this attendee asks, Pat, you mentioned building the let it go muscle, in quotes. Do you find value in routine, X number of reps, Y days per week?
Oh, that's really good. So when I say let it go muscle, I put it in the jargon of physical fitness, because a muscle needs to be worked to get stronger. There is no such thing as a let it go muscle, but there is new pathways in the mind that get built in, and meditation has proven that there's plasticity of the brain, and then it can help reconnect and rechange the connections, and the mind architecture, which is not something you can touch, changes. They're called vasanas. Inherent behavior patterns change. So to answer your community's question is, I do believe that if you set a time, same time every day, to sit for 10 minutes, you can do 20, you can do an hour, but 10 minutes is sufficient. Just sit for 10 minutes in a quiet, comfortable place. You don't have to be in any unease. You're going for the path of effortlessness to be in fullness. You don't need to be 10 days in Vipassana and on your knees. You can do that if you want, but you don't have to. You don't have to. You're already at the place right now. See, the difference is we are starting at the goal. There's no goal to reach. We are inherently peaceful, loving, happiness, being aware. It's not a becoming, it's an unbecoming. It's an unveiling. It's an uncovering, not a discovering, an uncovering. So the answer to the question is yes, set a time every day. And if you can't do it, don't. If you miss a day, don't let your mind say, you son of a, no, that defeats the purpose. Let that go.
Yes.
Just let go of everything you can let go, and see what's left. Everything, every thought, every feeling, anything. Someone says something negative to you, let it go. And if you do something, and hey, listen, I fall off the path, but I get back up, I dust myself off. I say the path needs 4 things. Intention. This questioner has the intention, okay, how do I build this let it go muscle? By a daily 10-minute just sitting, and anything that comes, let it go. Or like Paul McCartney said, let it be, let it be. Or let it flow, because it's going to come, it's going to go, but don't stop it. Don't get attached to it. Don't let it get sticky. Don't cling to it. Let it go. Let it go, let it go, let it flow.
Mm-hmm. So what are the 4? I'm curious.
Oh, I knew I said, yeah. 1 is intention. I'm glad you said that. 2 is vigilance. Be alert for when you do fall down on the path. Just, okay, I fell down. I got angry at my spouse. Okay, let it go, apologize, and work at it. Here's an example. So it's about 6 years ago. I'm at the kitchen sink, and Diane, my wife, said something, and I said something snarky back. And I walk into the pantry to get what was needed for lunch. I bring it. Damn, shit, damn. I come walking back, I count. I hugged her from the back. I said, honey, I'm so sorry. It took me 10 steps to realize I was such an asshole that I've always been. I'm so sorry. And that was the last time. That was those 10 steps eventually wore away, so that there is no, there's no snarkiness. Or that doesn't mean I don't get the urge to snark. It just means I let it go. I let it go. So that's vigilance, being aware that, okay, there it is. That they call Shempa, the trigger. Oh, let it go. Next is diligence. Once you fall off the path, get back up. Just get back up. That's all. No one's holding you down except your mind. Your thoughts want you to be down. The ego loves drama. It doesn't want you to be a success. Otherwise, it becomes irrelevant. And the last one is grace. And it's the grace that's bringing you all together today with Adam and myself to listen to this message. And that will pervade your body. Grace works from the inside, pulling you home to God, and works from the outside in various forms of teachers to help you. Some teachers you don't like and nor do you want, but that you need.
I love those 4 things. Thank you. Is that something that you had come up with, or is that out there as a
I probably bastardized someone else's. There's I would say Francis Lucille's a spiritual teacher, and he might talk about grace and intention. I might have added diligence and vigilance. I don't know. I just, because I journal stuff and you get it from all kinds of, I don't make anything up. The only thing I think I ever made up ever is the how and the now creates the wow. Maybe that's it. Everything else I've taken from other sources and play with it to use it as I recommend to all of your community for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. The how and the wow create the
No.
The how, no. It's the how and the now create the wow.
Yeah, and just think about it. All like you're doing right now. You're laughing, which is a wow, because you got it right. You got the little mantra right, and that's right. That's what we do all the time. But we feel that it's uncomfortable to laugh and to celebrate. That's what we're about to do. And as you become more mindful, more aware, then you take that awareness and you bring it back out into the world and express it as celebration, as communication, as this podcast. It just, you bring it back in as an expression of love and truth, as opposed to informed by a sense of lack, a separate self and ego that I need more and more and more. No, now it's more of a sharing, a service, a giving, a loving.
Yes, couldn't agree with you more. We have one other question that had popped in. This one says, would you talk about mindfulness and being in the now when in physical pain?
When you are in physical pain, you have to deal with that physical pain, whether it's medication or whatever the doctors and medical staff say. That's a body condition. That's a human element. What we're talking about is psychological pain, suffering. Now, mindfulness, if you are mindful in the now with your pain, be mindful of the treatment plan that you're using for the pain and feel the pain, but don't let the pain create feelings in the sense of mindful feelings of, I can't do what I used to do, or when am I going to get rid of this pain? And that's what cancer patients, this treatment plan is going to be so painful, or how much longer do I have to live? No, stay right now with that pain that you have and take care of that pain in the best medical program that you can. The mindful part is doing what you need to do for your body. If you are in pain, do exactly what you're supposed to do. Place your attention on whatever the treatment plan is, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, medicines, pharmaceuticals, whatever your team says you should do. But don't let that pain become psychological pain. And that means it will compare to the past or project to the future and anticipate or expect. And that will scare the bejesus out of you. And that will cause you more physical pain. Healing, harmony occurs best in the now. So place your awareness in the now and allow that, remember that door, the vertical door, that divine universe come up right through the vertical, stay off the horizontal plane. So that crucifix, stay in the vertical, hang out in the middle.
Yeah, I love what you said there, bringing your attention to it. I think that's where sometimes our mind, we latch on to the worry. You mentioned before that the egoic self loves drama. And sadly, I think we also love feeling sorry for ourselves oftentimes, because in that self-pity, we're feeling something, as opposed to when we have to confront and bring our attention to the current pain, that comes with it an inherent challenge to have to now confront and take action on what the doctor said you have to do with a physical therapist. So I love what you said there. Certainly.
And Adam, for your community member here who's in pain, stay away from the why question. No, there is no answer to the why question. Why God did this to me? Why has the universe done this to me? Why? No. It doesn't work that way. Just know that the past has served its purpose perfectly. And if you have pain right now, the reason is for you to take care of it and see what else unfolds before you.
Mm.
Something may cause you to awaken to a whole new realm of life because of the pain. And many times the suffering and pain that we endure in this realm of form, it doesn't really hit us to our deathbed. Then we think, damn, why didn't I wake up earlier?
Mm.
And
So
so this show right now today is a great stimulus for you to say, There's Thich Nhat Hanh is a famous Vietnamese Buddhist monk. In the late 60s, 70s, he was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King Jr., a prolific author, a beautiful man. He's 94, I think he's dying right now. But he has a book and a saying that I love, Adam. No mud, no lotus. The beautiful lotus flower only grows in mud. So the mud is the pain and suffering that we endure. When we accept it and we take it on as a challenge, we start to grow and awaken and evolve into this beautiful flower. Like a workout, you can't build muscle or get stronger without resistance, without some discomfort. That's the mud. And in our life, we will see lots of mud, whether because of COVID. Look for the lotus flower blossoming in these conditions, situations we have right now. Be curious.
Mhm. Great advice. No mud, no lotus. Now, is there a book attached to that?
Yeah, I think that's the name of a book of his.
Okay. Okay, great. We have one more question. I know you probably have to get going. Those both you answered with magnificently. So thank you for that. You got some feedback here. Someone said just exceptional, capital letters, thoughts, insights. Thank you. And then we've got another question. It said, Pat, disrespect on the bench, you respond, respect or you're gone, in quotes. How would you deal with the general disrespect going on in society today? What would be your message?
Start with yourself. It all starts here. It starts with me first. If I don't disrespect who I am, and I do that by thinking I'm this ego, I think I'm something different than who I truly am. Know thyself. Those two words were written on the walls of the Temple of Apollo, the temple in Delphi, like 3,000 years ago. Know thyself. Know thyself first so that you respect yourself first. You love yourself first because you are love. And from there, that will emanate outward to your family members, to your community, to your church group, to your work environment. Deal with yourself first. I say in the Sangha, my number one intention is for me not to suffer. Because if I don't suffer, I don't cause suffering. That's what I've learned. And then there, if I find suffering, if the opportunity presents itself, I can help alleviate or ameliorate suffering. But start with to your questioner, start with yourself. Respect yourself first. And anyone that comes in, your aura of presence, anyone, everyone, even those invisible people that are stocking the shelves or mowing the lawns, or just you display respect to all, knowing that that being is the same being that you are. Looks like a different expression, but if I were to use an analogy, we are all the ocean of awareness and just pop up as different waves. But I don't believe I'm a wave. I am the freaking ocean, as you are too.
I love it. Well, you have been so gracious with your time here today and shared so many great insights on mindfulness and business. And I appreciate you delving back into your past. I know you don't go there often, and it means so much. I will certainly blast out to those who view this on demand, and then those who today heard about the ACS Healed Project. I think that's great work you're doing there. And again, and so humbled for your being here today, Pat. And thank you for the insights. Thank you.
Peace, Adam.
Yes, I'll talk to you soon. And thank you to all community members. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.